Hi guys, welcome to Unit 1, Lesson 3. This is a lesson that's going to use the story Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl, which you can find in your reading companion. Roald Dahl, the author of this story, is best known for books that a lot of you have probably read. He wrote Matilda, he wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he wrote James and the Giant Peach, The Witches, and a bunch of other books that you're probably familiar with. But his short stories tend to be a little bit more adult. So there's a little bit more, maybe, uh, sneakiness, I guess, to his writing, and a little bit more maybe to analyze in his writing. So today we are going to be practicing our analysis skills by using details from one of these short stories called Lamb to the Slaughter to expand on our understanding of a character's true nature, specifically the character of Mary Maloney. You know, what kind of person is she really compared to the type of person that Roald Dahl kind of portrays? Uh, we should be able to figure out more about her than he actually tells us, is what I'm saying. So in order to do that, I'm going to use an example from the very beginning of the story, and then I'm going to let you go and work with examples from the rest of the story. So let's just take a look at the first 4 paragraphs then. I'll read them aloud, and then after reading them aloud, I will do 3 examples of details and sentences that could go along with those details so that you can see the type of work that you need to do on your own worksheets. So here are the first 4 sentences as read by me, Mr. Lassard. The room was warm and clean, the curtains drawn, the 2 table lamps alight, hers and the only and the one by the sorry, I'm going to start over. The room was warm and clean, the curtains drawn, the 2 table lamps alight, hers and the one by the empty chair opposite. On the sideboard behind her, 2 tall glasses, soda, water, whiskey, fresh ice cubes in the thermos bucket. Mary Maloney was waiting for her husband to come home from work. Now and again she would glance up at the clock, but without anxiety, merely to please herself with the thought that each minute gone by made it nearer to the time when he could come. There was a slow, smiling air about her, and about everything she did. The drop of the head as she bent over her sewing was curiously tranquil. Her skin, for this was her 6th month with child, had acquired a wonderful translucent quality. The mouth was soft, and the eyes, with their new placid look, seemed larger, darker than before. When the clock said 10 minutes to 5, she began to listen, and a few moments later, punctually as always, she heard the tires on the gravel outside, and the car door slamming, the footsteps passing the window, the key turning in the lock. She laid aside her sewing, stood up, and went forward to kiss him as he came in. Now, there's not a lot here to analyze. You know, it's only the first 4 paragraphs. But there are some guesses that we can make if we're a newcomer to the story. So if we pretend that we're reading the story for the first time and we're picking out certain details and we're trying to put those details into some kind of meaning in our head, then we might start thinking something like this. So let's start with, a detail from paragraph 1. So I picked this as a detail from paragraph 1. It says the room was warm and clean. On the sideboard behind her, 2 tall glasses, soda, water, whiskey. And so I picked that out because it kind of tells us, about the room that she's inhabiting. It also helps me wonder what she might be thinking at this moment. So when I think of this warm, clean room with these drinks set out, I think Mary might be proud of her clean and organized house that's ready for guests. At this point, we don't know that it's her husband coming home yet. but it's clear that, there are going to be multiple people in this room, that it's clean. And so what am I learning about Mary's personality? She seems right off the bat to be somebody who likes order and control. That she's got this clean room, she's got things set out, right? So she might be, to use a turn of phrase, somewhat of a control freak. So with that, I could write a sentence, a complex sentence or sentences that look acceptably like this. So if you were to write these, it would be fine. In paragraph 1, Mary is at home. Quote, the room was warm and clean. On the sideboard behind her, 2 tall glasses, soda, water, whiskey. This could show us that Mary is proudly waiting for guests and she likes to have order and control. So that would be fine. If that's what you wrote, that would be acceptable. I move on then to some more details from paragraph 3, and this time, once I have those details written out and what she might be thinking and what her personality, that might be saying about her personality, I'll show you a slight step up in the quality of the sentences. So we'll start with this particular detail is that the drop of her head was curiously tranquil. From paragraph 3. You'll notice that I cut out some, in both of these quotes actually, I cut out some of the middle, choosing to focus only on what I saw as important. So what is she thinking? Mary seems to be thinking that she needs to portray herself in a certain way, right? That I'm kind of focusing on this curious tranquility as she drops her head, that she seems to be aware of how others view her, right? So that's in the third column. She's concerned about how others are viewing her, that when she's seen, she needs to be seen in a certain way. It's not just about who she is, but she's worried about how other people perceive who she is. So here's a decent way to put that into sentences. Mary seems to think she is expected to look and act a certain way, which tells us that perhaps she is very concerned about how others view her. This is seen in paragraph 3 when it says the drop of her head was curiously tranquil. Curiously means maybe it's not natural for her to do these things. So you'll see there's a slight step up in the quality of the writing here. I've also gone the extra mile of picking out a specific word and explaining how that word from the quote helps us understand why I might have come to this conclusion. The final detail will come from paragraph 4, and when we get to the complex sentences, it'll be an advanced structure, one that if you're really trying to show off and improve, then you might try to write something like this. So first of all, our detail, she laid aside her sewing, stood up, and went forward to kiss him as he came in. Paragraph 4. What is she thinking as she does this? Well, she's thinking that she's excited that her husband is finally home, that he's come home, right? And what we're learning is that she does everything to live up to her husband's expectations of a good wife. That if we combine what we learned from the previous detail about her being worried about how others perceive her, then it's almost like she's putting on an act for her husband. Like she's living up to expectations that he is putting on her. So an advanced sentence might look something like this, or sentences, I suppose. Is it one? One sentence. When Mary laid aside her sewing, stood up, and went forward to kiss her husband as he came in, readers see that she was waiting and excited for her husband to come home, implying that all of the preparation and pretending may have been for her to appear to live up to the expectations that he has for her. So I'm making an educated guess that all of this pretending that that she seems to have been doing was really for his benefit, that she's putting on an act so that he'll be happy with her. So she's maybe a people pleaser to some extent. So anyway, so you have the option now of what types of sentences you're going to want to write, and of course, uh, which details from the rest of the story are you going to choose? You now have time to complete the story, making sure to find your own details and write your own sentences. When you come back with from this work time, I want you to make sure that you're prepared to share the work that you've done and the thoughts that you have with the rest of the class. I'll see you then.